What happened once with Mullah Nasruddin, who was a wise fool, was that Mullah Nasruddin, also known in the Arab world as Juha, lived in a small town. They only had one Imam. The Imam got very sick. They didn't have anyone learned. The closest person to someone learned they had was Mullah Nasruddin. He was the wise fool. He was not a scholar. So they went to him and said, would you give the Friday khutbah? And they expected, most people, if you said, would you give the Friday khutbah? People say, well, I don't think I'm, He said, for sure. He said, I have a jubbah, I have a turban, I'll give the khutbah. They're a bit worried, but they didn't have any alternatives. No one else wanted to give it. So Mullah Nasruddin walked up the mimbar, had a big jubbah on, fancy turban. When he went to the big city, he purchased all these. And he gave the opening dua, then he looked around and he said, do you know what I'm going to talk about today? And it's the Friday khutbah. So nobody spoke. So he looked around more and said, do you know what I'm going to talk about? Nobody said anything. Then he asked the third time, do you know what I'm going to talk about? Everyone's shocked. They started looking at each other, which you're not supposed to do on Jumu'ah, of course, but they did because they're all in shock. So finally one of the old uncles said, no, we don't. So he said, well, if you don't know what I'm going to talk about, then why should I talk? He says, Aqimu salah, establish the prayer. And everyone's in shock. All week, all they talked about in the village was what happened at Friday prayer. Next week, same thing. Imam is sick, Mullah Nasruddin has to give the khutbah, goes up on the mimbar, gives a longer opening dua. Then he pauses, looks around, says, do you know what I'm going to talk about today? Everyone's quiet. Repeats it 3 times. Then someone says, yes, we do. He said, well, if you know what I'm going to talk about, then why should I talk about it? Aqimu salah. 3rd week, he still has to give the Friday khutbah. He gave an even longer opening dua, so they're hopeful that maybe this time he'll give some khutbah. As an aside, of course, the minimum khutbah in the Hanafi school, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, is any dhikr. So even if someone says, Subhanallah, on the mimbar, and they faint, the khutbah is given. But there's many sunnahs to the khutbah. But the khutbah was from the practice of the Prophet. So there's many sunnahs to it, which is the right way of giving the khutbah. So he looks around, and they had a plan, of course. Predictably, he asked, what did he ask them? What am I going to talk about? He said, do you know what I'm going to talk about? So they had a plan. Some people said, yes, yes, yes. Others said, no, no, no. He says, well, those who know, please tell those who don't. Aqimu salah. Okay? So